So anyway, let's begin, and we'll have a check-in. I'd quite like to hear from each of you, first of all, where you are, but I already heard that, so I don't need to know that anymore with you. Somebody else turns up. But I'd also like to know from you what the phrase "be your own therapist" means to you personally, because it's actually quite a strange thing to say if you step out of the kind of culture where we've got so used to it that we don't even think about it anymore. So if you'd like to, somebody volunteer to start the check-in, and then when you've finished, you can name the next person, and then we'll go around, and each of us will have a chance to just express some personal reflection on the meaning of this phrase, "be your own therapist." Okay, who would like to start?
I can start.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You don't mind. To me, being my own therapist means being able to know my mind well enough so that I can leave some space between what I'm thinking and what I'm doing, so that I can act in an appropriate manner instead of just reacting instantaneously. If you were to bring neuroscience into it, before the amygdala kicks in and throws you into a reaction, a flight or fight reaction, that you give yourself some space, and mainly to be able to do the job of a Buddhist, and that's getting rid of all the negative states of mind and actuating the positive states of mind. In order to do that, you have to be able to recognize them. And as part of being your own therapist, I used to have constant chronic depression. And by learning about depression being just anger directed at myself, I've been able to bring myself, I mean, I don't think I'll ever be out of depression because there is a brain chemical association with it, but to be more comfortable with it and to actually not need medications anymore. So that's what it means to me.
Thank you, Lou. And welcome.
Go ahead.
Yeah, who you want to have go next?
Oh, in where I'm from, we call this picking the next person popcorning. So I'll popcorn it to Mary, Camille.
Okay, and before you start, Mary, I just wanted to welcome Vanessa and explain, Vanessa, that we're just doing a short check-in where each person is giving their own understanding of the phrase, "be your own therapist," just as a sort of opener for this session. Okay, so Mary, it's over to you.
I really like the title of this class and what it means to be your own therapist. Well, for me, it means being really internally referred, checking with me instead of outside myself, what's going on to make me create a story that I'm not comfortable or something's going on. So be your own therapist is, for me, it's really internal about stopping a story before it catches on fire and really being my own being my own boss, but really doing a lot of self-inquiry, I think, is what it means, is inquiring within myself instead of outside of myself, which I've done my whole life, to know that I know what's best for me and not looking for external validation of what's best for me. But it takes constant reminding, so I'm so glad for this class, and it's getting constant information and constant reminders about how to do that. So thank you for facilitating this class today, Andy.
Okay, so who's going to go next, Mary?
Canada.
How did I know that? Like Lou, I suffered from depression for a very, very long time. Did the medication, worked with a therapist. Didn't really find any relief with the therapy because I found it was more about, oh, I don't even really want to go there. It's just, I just didn't find it helpful. It wasn't challenging enough, didn't confront me enough. It was like, there, dear, you know, you'll be okay. You know, so I left therapy and I just started working on my own, and I really crunched it down. That's what I call it. And then when I found an article that said, is Buddhism a psychology? And when I opened that, it was like, I recognized what I was doing, saw Lama Yeshe's expression, be your own therapist. And I was hooked. And since then, you know, taking courses and being able to identify the factors, I'm medication free, I'm happy, I'm depression free, I'm content. So that's what be your own therapist is for me. It's been my lifeline.
Thank you. Okay. And who do you want to go next? There's two left.
Well, there's Vanessa, or you could hear Andy's version of what be your own therapist means.
Okay, I'll go next. So actually, I think it's quite radical, because the purpose of a therapist is to act as a kind of feedback or mirror to help you to find your way. And the phrase be your own therapist really comes from the Buddhist tradition, where actually the Buddha is our therapist. But the key thing about the Buddha is that it's a reflection of our own Buddha nature. And actually, our Buddha nature is primary when it comes to the question, who is your guru? Actually, the absolute guru is your Buddha nature. So in a sense, it's your Buddha nature that's leading you, even when you find the Buddha. So I think that it's a progression to become your own therapist. In fact, I've got a feeling that maybe the text is called Becoming Your Own Therapist, but I can't quite remember. In my case, I do certainly in the early stages of following this path, I really needed to rely on my teachers. So in a way, they were my guides and therapists to quite a degree. And but their wish was for me to be able to manage it myself. And I think that's the point. So I like to express it as becoming your own therapist, because I think it's a journey. And I feel that I'm kind of there now. You know, I still rely on my teachers, but much less than at the beginning. Mostly I can guide myself. And I think the reason is because unlike one or two therapies that I attempted before I met the Dharma, I found with the Dharma that really you just follow the methods that are taught and it kind of works. And I think that was kind of a revelation to me, that you could do it yourself. It's a self-healing. And I found the same in the medical sphere, because I have some conditions which no doctor of any tradition has been able to help me with. So eventually I gave up and thought, I'm just going to have to heal myself. And actually, it's kind of worked to quite a degree. So I think it's really mainly about taking responsibility for yourself. And I think that's a very wonderful thing to do. And it's very self-empowering. Okay, that's my version. Vanessa, let's hear. And also tell us tell me anyway, where you're from. Maybe everybody else knows.
I'm from Orange County, California.
Cool.
And being a therapist means being on a journey. So I since I was, I don't know, in junior high. I've seen therapists, and it can only work for so long, where I think the goal is for you to become your own therapist. And when I heard about this concept from Buddhism, I was like really intrigued. I still feel like I need to do a lot of healing and personal therapy on myself. Excuse me. So I find it to me, it's very empowering to know that you can actually solve your own issues instead of doing what I used to do, was to go vomit my problems out to everyone. But for me, what it means is that I have the accountability and I have the power to, counsel myself as opposed to seeking it from someone else.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. It's quite a good, helpful for me as a way of taking on this role. And so what I plan to do is to lead a short meditation now, and then we'll open it up and to an open forum, basically. So yeah, let's do a meditation for maximum 10, but probably a bit less than 10 minutes. And so we'll focus mainly just on settling our energy. So settle on your seat and straighten your back. And allow your energy to settle to the lower part of your body. And feel gravity pulling that energy towards the center of the earth. And thereby feel more and more grounded at the place where you are. And you're probably aware of the history of the place where you are, at least to some extent. But how you yourself are a temporary traveler at this place. But at this moment, this is where you belong. So feel the sense of belonging to this place where you are, and of being accepted by those who were there before. And now reverse your attention up your body, up your spine, into your head, and continue on upwards through the ceiling of the room, through the roof of the building. If there are clouds where you are, go up above the clouds. And experience the vastness of the sky all around you. Within this vast space, there is total freedom. The Earth's atmosphere surrounds the whole Earth. It's the interaction of the sun and the Earth that's produced this atmosphere, which enables all life, including one's own. And from space, you can see the planet below, and you can see the sun, as well as other bodies in the sky, the moon, planets, and so forth. And below, you can see yourself sitting there. And if you draw a line from where you are to the center of the Earth, it goes right through the center of your body. What we call the central channel. And if you bring your attention back down into your body, around the level of your heart, but in this channel, you will find your heart center, and just be there. Allowing yourself to open at your heart center so that it becomes your heart space. And within this space, you can accept everybody else in this session with equanimity, with open mind and open heart. And you can accept others in your life, near or far to you, right now. Because this heart space has no boundary. So don't engage in any more thinking about this. Just be there. In the silence and spaciousness. So just to review the meditation, we started off with our connection with the earth, with the place where we are, including the ancestors of this place. And then we connected with the space above, the sky, the solar system, and so forth. And then we came to our heart space. And allowed it to be very open. And these three are completely part of our life at every moment. Okay, we'll finish the meditation, the rest. And we have we've got just over half an hour for open forum. And I gather that it's quite normal for people to ask questions, but I'd also be very open if you just want to share something, that's really great. In case you wanted to ask any questions about Buddhism, although there's a lot that I don't know. I have been studying and practicing for over 40 years, so I guess I picked up a bit along the way. So I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have related to, well, anything. So Mary mentioned that you sort of show a hand and through the, do you want to explain that in case, or does everybody here know about that? I mean, I don't mind if you just lift up your hand or even if you just unmute. There's so few of us, but you can just unmute and start speaking. You don't even have to stay muted. Well, actually, maybe Mary thought it might be keep out the echo if we stay muted. Okay, so who wants to start? It's just open.
I found it very interesting, that meditation, because when I went down into my heart space and I opened it up, I met, of course, this is all my imagination, but I met my root guru there. And I've been imagining her there for the past month or so. I just started, guru devotion and everything. And it was different. And then the roaches came. So, I was trying to imagine them as the people that they were at one time, but I couldn't get that far in. So maybe later on I'll be able to do that. But it was just most enjoyable. It was the first time for a long time, I've been trying to get my mind to go down into that space and reside there. And this is the first time I felt like I almost accomplished it, at least in my mind, So thank you for that.
No, that's good. And, if you the more you practice being in your heart space, the easier it gets. So I recommend you keep practicing that. It's so much better than meditating from your brain. Yeah. Thank you. Somebody else? Yeah.
I have mostly just a comment. I actually didn't feel well this morning. I had a raging headache since last night, and the way you led that meditation, I just feel really uplifted, really peaceful. Like I feel like whatever was there is now gone.
Oh.
So I'm really grateful that you started this class with that meditation. It was really beautiful.
Oh, that's wonderful. And can you stay unmuted, Mary? And it would be really nice to try and understand how you think the meditation might have achieved that.
I might need your help in understanding that, because I'm not sure.
Okay. It's triggered something. Yeah, that's okay. Go with it. That's fine. Don't worry. Anybody's welcome to express any emotion at any time. Definitely. Yeah. So definitely, you said you might need my help. So I'm going to say a few things about how the meditation works, and that might help clarify. So we started with the energy going downwards in the body and feeling the gravity pulling the energy towards the center of the earth. That in itself can act as a sort of drain on tension, which leads to a headache, because the tension that leads to a headache is pressure up into the top part of the head. And so just even the beginning of the meditation might have started that process. It's possible. And the more that you connect with the place where you are, the land where you actually are, and really feel the energy of that and connect with it, especially I find thinking about those who've been here before. And when you feel that they accept you, it's also quite powerful. So even that was just the first part of the meditation, which might have helped release the headache. I don't know. And then the next thing was just to have this line, this central channel line, and then going up into the sky. And the spaciousness of the sky is so expansive. So it really can free you from this tightness that sometimes grips us for whatever reason. There's many, many reasons why that happens to us. So I find that's also very, very liberating, actually, to just relate to space. Now, coming back in and coming to the heart center, it can be tricky because if it's too tight, then there can be a clenching up. And so therefore I took it right from being the heart center to being the heart space. And that space has to be very wide open. In fact, if you think of the heart space as having no boundary, I find it really helps. Also, as another way of releasing us from things which are sort of gripping us tightly. And of course, within that heart space, then there's a kind of spontaneous love and compassion, and equanimity is possible. All that can happen because it's a space in which we're not really threatened. We don't have to close up or recoil. I don't know. Do you want to come back on that, Mary? I mean, does that help explain anything?
Yes, it does. And everything you said just resonated. And I really liked what you said about connecting with the land and with the ancestors. I often do that here, especially when I'm walking or just in the mountains or out on the land, even just in the yard. So I appreciate you saying that, because that's really meaningful to me. And I loved hearing what you said about draining. I just appreciate everything you said. So thank you.
Okay. Maybe it can be helpful as well outside the session. Okay, so Vanessa's temporarily closed off the camera. Would anybody else like to say or ask anything, share anything? Yeah, Doris, yeah, please.
First of all, I love you, Mary. Mary and I have a really strong connection, so I teared up when she did. For me, the part of the meditation that I could really relate to is when we got to the space, which is kind of opposite to Mary. I have a strong connection to anything like the moon, the stars, the planets. So when we got there, I felt that spaciousness. And for the first time, I was able to relate it to bringing it back down when you said so. So I never made that connection before, that I could take that feeling that I've experienced all my life, thinking about the space being very spacious, and now bringing it in. So that was my thought.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, because space is like the foundation of matter, or, you know, physical reality. But when you come into the heart center of the mind, which is what happens when you come within, in a way, the mind goes beyond space. So it's even more vast, potentially, which is something quite interesting.
I'll look next time to see how far it goes, if it's just here or whether it's out there.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to experiment with the heart space being different sizes. Usually when I'm leading this kind of meditation, I say, feel it to be the area within your rib cage. So we start off there. And then at a certain point, we just let go of that. And it becomes like the space of the room that you're in. And you just hold it there and see how that feels. And then you can keep going, and you can go to the universe, or you can go to the infinite universes of all time. And it still works. And I think this is the glory of meditation, that it enables us to access this kind of experiences that don't come in most other forms of, let's say, therapy, because that's the term. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, thank you, Doris. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to share anything or ask anything, Vanessa? Yes, kind of like your call if you want.
I'm listening. Well, I don't know. I think I had some really bad nightmares. So
Right.
it's just, I have this reoccurring nightmare around the theme of abandonment and loneliness.
Yeah.
So when I wake up, I kind of feel relieved that it wasn't real. So that's kind of like the thing that's on my mind. But I always kind of wonder why. I don't know, my life is as lonely as it is, but you know, since I studied Buddhism, that helps, because it kind of showed me that being alone is a good thing, and it gives time to, you know, do things like meditate and do some self-introspecting. But yeah, that's, you know, the only thing that comes to mind at this point. I just started a new job. I'm a nurse, and so yesterday was my first day at the hospital, and it's just majority of the people in there have COVID. And so, yeah, that's the only thing that comes to mind.
Well, I guess that they feel a bit abandoned. I don't know if it's the same as the UK, but it's quite hard to visit your relatives in the COVID hospital.
They just reinstated no visitors unless someone's dying. So, which I kind of take that personal, because it's like, I remember my mom, when she was dying, she didn't have COVID, but we couldn't visit her because of the COVID restrictions. But it's hard.
So this story of abandonment and loneliness has been around you quite a lot. So it's not surprising if you've absorbed it. But also, you know, there is a level of reality where the truth is that we are alone. You know, that it's, for instance, we arrive in this world alone. Alone in the sense that we're total strangers to the situation we arrived to. And so we have to start from scratch and getting to know people. But then at the end of life, when we depart, nobody can come with us. You know, they might be holding our hands as we die, but actually we have to continue the journey alone. It's like saying goodbye at the airport, you know. They can bring you to the gate, but then they have to stay behind and you have to go ahead on your own. So it seems to me, from my own little experience, that it is important to come to terms with this aspect of our life, the aloneness. Now, there's another side to that, of course. For one thing, it makes you appreciate people who are special to you, you know, that you have some warmth with. That's one. So that contrasts in a way with the aloneness. But also, there is a level at which none of us is ever alone. And that is quite an extraordinary thing to open up to, but I don't think you can do that outside your heart space. In your heart space, you can connect with everybody and anybody at any time, because the heart space has no boundary. And so anybody that is part of your life, and others, of course, but especially those that are part of your life already, they're already in there. Maybe that's a bit radical. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah,
It does.
It's definitely radical and kind of going out of the comfort zone, but I think it's very eye-opening. Yeah, it's something to practice.
And it can actually be an emotional experience, you know, that you're in the heart space and there's somebody in your life with whom there's some vibration, and it's like your emotions are awakened to that person at that time. And this is the next point I want to make. You may think, oh, this is just my imagination. But actually, there is a level at which we're actually connected with others. And that is kind of hard for me to prove, I suppose. But there's one thing I could say that helps me to believe it's true. I find that when I'm meditating in a group, it's a more powerful experience in a certain way than when I meditate on my own. And before all this Zoom stuff, I used to think it was sitting in a circle in a room with people and that you were kind of exchanging energies while you were meditating, and that was giving you some kind of sustenance for your meditation. And I do think that actually is what happens. But what really blew me is to discover that the same thing happens on Zoom. I can see two people nodding, so it's not just me. And I've heard from others that they also had that experience. Now that cannot be explained by the same sort of arguments as sitting in the same room exchanging energies, because the distance is quite enormous. So I can only explain that by saying we're connected in the mind, which is boundaryless. So for me, that gives me confidence in that. And of course, I do have a teaching from my main teacher. Do any of you know the practice called Tonglen? It's giving and taking. Yeah, everybody's nodding, so you all know it. So I've had two kinds of teachings about this. One is that it's just training your own mind. And the other teaching is that it can actually help others directly. And so I asked my main teacher what he had to say, and he said, it definitely can help others if you do that practice with strong conviction. And it can even help those that you don't know because you have a karmic connection. So being told that and then practicing as if that's the case and feeling that maybe it's happening, and then sometimes getting feedback from people I know that, you know, they got better or something, and I'd been doing some practice for them, gave me the confidence that maybe it really can help directly. I had a special situation when I was teaching in a center, and we were in a building where there were other sort of organizations in the building, and it was very quiet. And so there were two people in a room not too far from where we were seated who were having a terrible row. They were absolutely screaming at each other. It was horrible, and we were trying to meditate. So I said to the group, okay, we're all going to practice Tonglen. We're going to breathe in the anger of these people, and we're going to breathe out the peace of our own meditation. And lo and behold, within about a minute or two, their energy settled down and they stopped. Now, of course, it could just be coincidence, but I feel that it makes a difference. And that gives me confidence also, that in meditation or in the heart space, let's say, you actually can connect with others, in which case you're not alone. That was my main point. So does that trigger any thoughts for anybody else? You want to share anything? Yeah, Doris.
Thank you. I'm not able to compare the two experiences as, you know, being in a group physically and this experience on Zoom, because I've never met a Buddhist face to face. Never been in the presence of another Buddhist.
Wow.
Mary knows this. I mean, I've spent the last 5 years, maybe less than 1,000 hours in the presence of another being. If I didn't have Zoom, I wouldn't have this connection. I'm so grateful for it. It's brought me closer to so many people, brought me out of my shell. I'm speaking on camera, Mary. You know, so yeah, the heart space. I mean, I don't usually talk in those kind of terms, but my heart space feels that, you know, I don't have the words to explain it, but I'm just grateful that this kind of technology, I'm grateful to COVID for this, you know. That's my thought.
No, it really makes sense to me. Thank you, Doris. Thank you. And it's amazing what you said about not having any physical contact with any Buddhist. That's amazing. Yeah.
And yet I'm happy. I'm not lonely. And my depression of 30 years is gone.
Okay, thank you. Just unmute yourself if you want to speak. I think we'll just leave it really. I mean, we could all be unmuted probably. Yeah, come back.
I'm interested in pursuing some dream yoga. What can you advise?
Right.
I don't dream very much or that I'm aware of, but since I've been kind of practicing, I am noticing some stuff. I'm just wondering, you know, like, do you have any tips?
Well, people talk about ways to become more aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming as being a kind of stepping stone into dream yoga. I've never made efforts in that direction. I don't know why, but I'm just not drawn to do that. But I know people who do, and they say it's very effective. And one method that's recommended is during the day to say to yourself, this is all a dream. And so that way you get used to saying this is a dream. And then when you're in a dream, you can say this is a dream. And then you can start to have some kind of self-control during the dream. In my case, I do sometimes have self-control during a dream. In other words, I'm aware that I'm dreaming, and so I can make choices. The point about dreams is it's good to practice something positive or constructive during a dream. you know, to benefit others, or anyway, to do something positive, what we call virtuous, you know, which in other words, something that will bring a happy result. And a lot of my dreams, I'm helping others in communities. That's a lot of my dreamscape. And I'm quite satisfied with that. I used to think my dreams are really mundane and boring. You know, other people seem to have much more exciting dreams, and I'm sure they do. But somehow if I'm, you know, in a community helping others in some way, I think that's really kind of positive. There is one thing that as you go to sleep is to, well, let's base it on what we've been doing today, is to actually go into that spaciousness as you're falling asleep, and just try to stay in that spaciousness, that openness. And then that will create a positive environment for whatever comes in the dreams. I think that's one tip that I do practice, is to just release myself into sleep rather than, and also it helps you to go to sleep, which is quite useful, because you sort of relax at your heart space and just be there, open, not with any material, but that will come, but you don't need to manufacture it. That's my feeling. Maybe somebody else has some thoughts about that.
I go to sleep with my 4 cats on my bed. And I woke up this morning and I think I like bursted like some kind of like something in my neck in this area. So it kind of hurts. But I don't know. Sometimes I mean, I wonder if that had something to do with like the really vivid dreams I had about the loneliness, because that's kind of like my recurring nightmare. And it's like I woke up with this. So I don't know, I'm hoping it's like some kind of purification, but I do, yeah. I don't know if it's like a bad thing, like letting my 4 cats sleep on my bed, because I tend to like toss and turn and kind of like shoo them out of the way.
When you're feeling this loneliness, I mean, that's during the dream, you feel completely abandoned and lonely. That's more or less what you're saying.
Mhm.
And it's a very horrible feeling. Yeah. Do you think it's like an infant being left alone to cry and nobody coming?
Yeah, I definitely, had that growing up with my mom too. So
Yeah, I did too. That's what it triggered in me when you said that thought. So being your own therapist, which is where we started this session, is like finding a way through that, isn't it? To be courageous and strong, to actually come through to a better place where you're not afraid. Because when you say the word nightmare really means fear, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. So it might be possible to use meditation to work on the fear associated with that experience, and to gradually release yourself from that fear by seeing that it's not necessary to be afraid. Maybe also there's a thing, when you feel your mother doesn't come enough, which is definitely a strong experience for me when I was young, is being your own therapist in that situation could mean being your own mother. I sometimes suggest that people imagine that not only are they like a mother, but they're also holding a baby, and that baby is themselves. And they're nurturing that mother by giving warmth and so forth, or even food, let's say, to that mother, to that child, to that baby. And you feel that's nourishing you. In that way, you're being your own therapist or being your own mother. And I don't know whether that can overcome loneliness, because, all our, in a positive sense, the attachment is very important. Attachment with our mother is very important to the rest of our development in relationships, according to psychology. Lou, did you want to say something? I think you put your hand up. Oh, you're muted. No, you didn't. Okay, that's my miss. Okay. Okay. We got time for anybody else who wants to share something. We've got 5 minutes before we finish.
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this a lot. And I'm very grateful that it happened. And I hope that the low turnout doesn't dissuade you from doing it again.
Okay, so just to reassure you, actually the low turnout helps because it means we didn't have too many people to speak and we could really, really go deeper as a small group of 5. And because this is the first session I've done of this actual kind of thing, I'm also learning the ropes. I'm learning how to, I'm getting to know you guys as well. So, you know, if you come next week, I'm also on next week, and then I'm not on after that. But there is a possibility of me doing a month later in the year as well. But I said to Venerable Dundrup, I think I'll just reserve judgment on that till I've had a taste of the whole thing. But I've also enjoyed this session very much. And I don't know, I'm really touched by all your openness. And I don't know whether that's normal, but anyway, it's been, yeah, it's very touching. And in a way, that's what one wants, isn't it? When you connect with other people. Yeah, Mary, you wanted to say?
I completely agree with Lou that this was such a gift because I don't usually express myself out loud in the group or ask questions. And I feel like having this small group today, it gave me the courage to share and feel safe to do that. So thank you.
Well, certainly that's the kind of space that I would want to, you know, be responsible for, is a space where everybody's safe to express any emotion or thoughts or whatever, you know. Yeah, I've been trained in a methodology called radical inclusivity, which means to accept everyone and every part of everyone. And I say I've had some training, but it doesn't mean that you can actually do it. It's a very challenging thing to do. But certainly when I'm in a situation like facilitating a group like this, that's what I try to practice. And so I try to help create that sort of environment where everyone and every part of everyone is fully accepted. Okay. Anybody else want to say any final words before we go? I imagine some people start and finish with prayers when they're doing this. And I don't know, I'm not sort of big on prayers in this kind of situation, but what we could do is just bring together some of the energy from what we did together today. And I don't know, make a determination to carry it forward in a positive way in the week ahead, whatever connections we make, whether it's in everyday life or in our dreams or in our meditations. And may we continue the inner work, which is what I think being your own therapist refers to. And it's also what the word Dharma refers to, inner work, to continue the inner work so that we become a better person. Thank you. Okay. So I plan to be here next week. So maybe see you.
Thank you very much, Andy.